Welcome back, and joining us on the show now is Sumit Gupta. He's CEO of WASEDA Global Commodities. Sumit, hi, thank you so much for joining in. Your first reaction on the MSPs, really, because there's just so much conversation on this. I do understand that MSP is a regular thing, comes twice in a year, but the reaction this time comes in on the back of the fact that we've seen the highest of MSP for Ragi and the lowest, perhaps, for Paddy.
Very good noon, ma'am, and thank you for having me on the show. And you have raised a very important point, because let me ask the question: when you are saying MSP, do you mean minimum support price, or you mean maximum price possible for the farmer at the moment? Because what has happened in a way, by increasing MSPs which are not in line with market, and specifically, as you have mentioned, maybe highest for Ragi and lowest for rice, government is signaling to the farmer that you should plant less rice. But it is not going to translate completely into cropping pattern as such by only through MSP till the time buying mechanism for the other crops are in place. For example, government has given a lot of incentive on planting of pulses, and if you can see today, pigeon pea prices in open market is trading around 6,500 levels, as against if you see the MSP of 7,500, and next year promised MSP of 8,000. So we have a lot of distance to move on converting policy into action for farmers on ground.
Sumit, there has been various conversation and data as well, which shows that not even 20, and in some cases even 15% farmers are able to get that MSP. I'm not talking about wheat and paddy here, but for the rest of the commodities.
Absolutely. If you look at the pigeon peas, total procurement that government is able to achieve is around 600,000 tons on a crop of approximately 4 million tons, which is maybe 1/7, around 15% of total production is being procured by the government. And though market surplus in these crops are much higher than wheat and rice, which farmer keeps for their own consumption, but what is more important point is it takes away confidence in the long-term policy making from the farmer point of view. And the farmers who produce or the crops which are not being procured by the government are the most marginal farmers who are based in Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra, and parts of Rajasthan and MP. So I think there needs to be a better conversion of policy into action, and giving such a high MSP without that being having a good track record is not a good thing.
So, Sumit, would you say that a fine line perhaps needs to be drawn? Because on one side, the government is increasing MSP for farmers, and on the other side, keeping many of these commodity prices in check for the consumers.
It's a very good question, actually. How do we, because when you talk about US and talk about Fed, they say 2% inflation is our target. In case of RBI, we say 4% inflation is our target. But if we increase MSP by 4%, 3 to 4%, or 5% in certain commodities, how can you have a 4% inflation target year on year when 46% of the inflation basket is made up of food items? Because if you increase grain prices by 4%, the milk prices will go up at a higher quantum, or animal product prices will go up at a higher percentage than that. So the point that or the question is addressing is very important, that we should look at inflation which negates the impact of MSP. And we cannot have a reasonable target of 4% inflation by increasing MSP 4% year on year. That means one signal that you are giving to market that we don't respect MSP. And commodities will trade at a price lower than MSP for farmer.
The other concern I want to put forth and get your response on is about maize, because we've seen a very strong MSP increase, 2,400 rupees a quintal. Do you also believe, are you also on a school of thought where you think that cotton, soybean, and perhaps pulses area could go down in favor of maize?
So it's again a very important question, because if you look at the competing area and the farmer margin analysis, the competing area between maize and cotton is Gujarat, Rajasthan, and Maharashtra. Among soybean and maize is largely MP, south of MP and Maharashtra. And for sure, the kind of MSP increase that we have seen in both in case of soybean and maize will put farmer at a spot that what crop he should go into. But let me put it this way, government does not have infrastructure to buy maize at majority of the places. Last year, government bought almost 2 million tons of soybeans, but still, if you see soybean prices throughout the year traded much lower than MSP levels, which is a psychological inhibit for the farmer to go for oilseed planting next season. And as in case of maize, as you have rightly mentioned, farmer may look towards planting more maize. Why? Because yield in maize is quite good. And with the ethanol sector coming in, farmer has been able to get good realization. And if monsoon stays good, which though with a good, after a good start, next 10, 15 days looks a little tepid, then we are in for big maize crop in the coming season.
Fair that point. Take your sense on all of those commodities there, and the fact that, of course, the government will have to walk that very fine line about increasing MSP prices, but also ensuring fine prices for the consumers there. Thank you, Sumit, for joining in. And with that, it's a wrap on Halftime Report. Business Lunch will take all the action ahead.